Welcome into Nuggets of Knowledge with the father-son planning team of Chris and Dylan Bowman of Prospect Wealth Advisors. This is part two of kind of our get to know us introduction to the business, the people behind the business, the team there at Prospect Wealth Advisors. And we did our first episode more on the personal side of things. So definitely encourage you to go back, check that out. Some pretty good stories, pretty good anecdotes, learn more about these two gentlemen as well. But today I want to focus more on the clients and the planning process. We'll get into a lot of the specifics and the details of the planning process as we move forward, but want to kind of paint the overall picture of what you guys do every day for the clients. For anybody finding this, learning more about Prospect Wealth Advisors, this will be a good episode to kind of kick them off. So again, as we get started, remember everything is in the show description. Check that out, and please subscribe too if you haven't already. So guys, let's jump into this conversation as well. I want to start with the clients itself. So who is the ideal person that you're working with at Prospect Wealth Advisors? And when they come in to see you, what's maybe the biggest challenge they're typically facing?
Yeah, I mean, it really runs the gamut, right? So, we utilize different ways to get in front of new clients, and we certainly have a lot of referrals. Sometimes those referrals are in our sweet spot, and sometimes they aren't. But we want to help pretty much everybody that gets referred to us. But there's a certain, amount of net worth that I think would make the most sense, for other people. We usually are $500,000 or more of investable assets. And not because we want to exclude anybody, but because some of our investment programs have minimums to be involved in. And so to get the portfolio that we would want our clients to be involved in, we want to make sure that they're able to take advantage of that. So it doesn't have a cookie cutter person exactly, but we certainly want to help everybody.
From a personality standpoint, we really want to work with people who are willing to learn and to listen, right? We don't do business with everybody we sit down with, but there's a lot of people who don't know. They don't know what their investments even are, where they are, how they work. So just sitting down with people who are willing to learn and actually ask questions, it makes the whole process a lot easier. There's nothing harder than sitting down and trying to explain something that somebody has, zero knowledge of or isn't willing to explore more of or listen into. So kind of just having that back and forth conversation where we're educating them. And they're also educating us on their lives and their situations. The more that we know about each other and each other's situations, the easier the whole process is and the more sense it makes.
We spend a lot of time on, kind of the discovery process, right? The relationship has to work for both people. And when we meet people, we want that bond, to be there. We want them to enjoy the relationship as much as we enjoy the relationship. And there's some personalities that, that sometimes don't mesh, and that's okay. But for the most part, with the first meetings, we want to make sure that we're both compatible for each other. And like Dylan said, we spend a lot of time getting to know somebody, getting to know their background, getting to know their families. What are their goals and aspirations? What do they want to accomplish in their retirement years? And what type of risks do they want to take to get there? That's a huge part, because everybody wants to make money, but what are you willing to give up in the rare times that the markets really go sideways for an extended period of time? So we really want to hone in on all those aspects.
We talked in the last episode, and you talked a little bit already about relationships and why that's so important for both of you. Explain what kind of relationship you typically strive to build with your clients.
Yeah, it's a very, very personal relationship. When you're managing people's money, like I said before, it transcends just, us making money for the clients, right? It's a very personal relationship. It's a trusted confidant. It's a trusted advisor. Like I said before in the previous episode, sometimes it's, we're the first people that are called when something happens. Or we have clients calling us all the time, and they're getting some scam telephone call, and they want to just ask me, does this sound right? Does it make sense? And I can't tell you. They are constantly barraged by that sort of thing. So we are constantly, giving advice on, nope, don't call that person back. Don't give your personal information out. And certainly on another show, we'll share some stories of real, things that have happened that we've safeguarded our clients on. But we want it to be an open forum. We are constantly available for our clients. We leave our cell phones with them so that they can contact us if need be at kind of any day or night. So We want it to be like a trusted family member.
Yeah, like Chris said about them having our cell phone numbers, right? There's times that we're not going to answer. We can't answer. We're in meetings. But them having the ability to call us on the weekends or something happens in the carrier or the markets aren't open, being able to kind of ease them and plan something out. So first thing Monday morning, we can get after it. But yeah, I mean, we have very close relationships. We're not just saying that. This job requires a lot of trust, right? And when you trust somebody enough, eventually you're going to become friends with them, right? Are you friends with anybody you don't trust? No. So we're developing relationships. I mean, Chris has had some of these relationships for 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, there's a specific client we have that I was going to their house every St. Patty's Day from when I was like 5 years old. And now I'm working with them, So it's really cool. Having this relationship, it needs to be a give and take. We're both going to help each other out. It's supposed to be fruitful for everybody involved. So these relationships end up being very, very strong.
Well, let's get into the planning process a little bit then too. You kind of painted the picture of how it begins, right? A lot of questions up front and getting to know the client a lot at the very beginning. But how does it look from kind of start to finish? You don't have to get into a ton of detail, but kind of high level, what does that process look like?
We always start with the get to know you, obviously, right? Let's get to know a little bit about each other. But then the first thing is the risk analysis, right? What sort of investor are you? Are you conservative? Are you moderate? Are you hyper aggressive? Do you have conservative assets elsewhere that allow you to be more conservative with other assets, right? So we always want to do a risk analysis, see how risky you are. How risky is your portfolio? Could you be doing better for the amount of risk that you're taking? So it's always going to start there, getting to know the client profile, what type of investor they are, and how much risk they're willing to take and how much risk they're currently taking.
In general, it's like a 5-step, right? We got the discovery meeting and kind of relationship building on the first one. Then we get back together and we have the data gathering, right? Tell us about all your assets. Where, we want to know every single corner of, your world and where everything is tucked away and hidden, so we can really put together a comprehensive plan. Then there's the analysis. And during the analysis, we're looking for gaps in their plan. We're looking for potholes in their plan. What do they not have? That might be they don't even have an estate plan, or they don't have an income plan, or they don't really know what their money means to them. And then there's a strategy session of, okay, we gathered everything. Here's where we think we should go. And then there's the implementation meeting, which would be 4 or 5, and then the ongoing monitoring and getting together on a consistent basis to go over everything. And it's not just what's your portfolio up or down. It could be that inflation is a bigger part of your life right now. And according to your income plan, when eggs were, $2.99 and now they're $8, we might have to adjust your income plan. So we're constantly adjusting and monitoring. So that would be the 5-step process.
Again, remember, you can always get a free financial evaluation, a financial checkup. Just go to prospectwealthadvisors.com to kind of begin that process. But that gives you a little look at what it looks like from start to finish. I know everyone thinks when they're working with an advisor, okay, what are my returns? Everybody thinks investing first. But how would you define and how do you measure success for clients?
It's uniquely different to everybody, right? Some people are just steadfast on they looking at the bottom line and how much it made. Some people are looking at what type of service do I have? I was a number, somewhere else, and now I'm not a number anymore with you. I have a much more personal relationship. So that personal relationship transcends sometimes maybe a little bit more on what they're making and more on just being accessible, us being accessible all the time for them. Certainly at the end of the day, it's going to come down to performance as well. So, we define that however the client defines that, right? To us, it's a combination of everything, at the highest level we think we can bring, right? It's trying to get the best returns. It's being present for them at any given moment, that they have Dylan's number, my numbers, our staff's number, so they can constantly always have somebody. I don't think our clients go more than, 20 minutes, before somebody's calling them back. And I think that's super important.
All right, let's talk then about the advice for someone that maybe is hesitant, because everybody has a little different reason for why they don't want to start the planning process. Maybe they're a little concerned about where they stand. Maybe they feel like they're behind. Maybe they think they can do it themselves. But what advice would you give for someone who's hesitant to begin that process?
Listen, there's I forget where the quote is, but you start a 1,000 step journey with the first step, right? If you're constantly scared and worried about it, you're always going to be scared and worried about it. You got to start somewhere, right? You don't know what you don't know. So go in, ask some questions, maybe learn a thing or two. And hopefully every time we get back together, or even if you get together with somebody else, you'll learn something more and more each time. And you'll continue to learn, you'll continue to know and ask the right questions. And that will make you more comfortable as a client. And that'll make us more confident as the advisor that, you know what you're talking about. We know what we're talking about. And we're having a mutual discussion and understanding things and solving those problems together.
I think a lot of people are either, analysis paralysis, where they're just analyzing everything too much. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that are just, that have just cannot make a decision and move. They're happy in their little world, even if their little world is not producing. And that's a perfect example, taking one step at a time, or the book, that I talked about, Atomic Habits. I think every single solitary person that even if they have a great financial advisor that they absolutely love, should get a health checkup from somebody else. Because like Dylan said before, you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. Is your 8% return good? Or based on an 80 risk score out of 100, and you're in a high growth portfolio and you're making 8%, maybe that's significantly lagging the S&P 500. Unless you have somebody doing an analysis for you, you're never going to know. So we do these analyses for people free of charge. And at the end of the day, we give you all of this information about your current portfolio that you can either take and go, wow, I really love what Dylan and Chris and Prospect Wealth said, and I want to go to the next level with them. So we're actually going to do work first before you decide to move any money over to us. But at the very least, if you decide to stay where you're at, you're going to have a complete analysis of where you're at from a risk perspective, from a beta perspective, alpha perspective, how well you're doing against any benchmarks. And we give that to you. Our goal is hopefully that you see what we put together and how we can help you. And maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together. Yep,
exactly. And, just to kind of put it simply, how many second looks would you get from a doctor if you had health issues? Right? I've had back issues. I can't tell you how many different chiropractors I've been to, and you learn a little something from each one, right? So if you would do that for your physical health, why wouldn't you do that for your financial health?
Yeah, well said. All right. Well, anybody that finds the show and sees the name Nuggets of Knowledge can probably glean a little info into what to expect. But I want to hear from both of you. What are you hoping people get out of this show and watching or listening, every single month?
Listen, the first part of the show is about us personally. I think when you come aboard with somebody, instead of it being just a stodgy relationship, get to know us a little bit more on a personal level, our faith, our family, our activities and what we love to do in life. And, and that's certainly spending time with family. And then from a professional side, we want you to understand how much work is done behind the scenes. Right. And we have a tremendous staff of professionals that work with us and everything that we do as a team. So we want you to understand that side too, that you'll be part of our family, and we take that job and that responsibility very seriously.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. We just hope that somebody listening will get some sort of knowledge, get some sort of piece of education, maybe spark their interest in going to see an advisor or speaking with their current advisor. Maybe we mentioned something that is a question they've had, but they didn't really know in the front of their mind that was a question. They didn't really know how to ask it. So we just hope people, whether they work with us or work with their advisor, can just get some education and really some nuggets of knowledge.
If there's two things that we pride ourselves on is education. We want people to be educated, and therefore they'll be more comfortable with what they're doing, and that there is no pressure, when you come into our office. It's very relaxed and very casual. If you choose not to do business with us, I say at my seminars all the time, we're not going to stomp our feet and scowl and get mad. We're going to shake hands and part friends, because if it's not now, maybe down the road, there's another opportunity for us to work together. So.
Yeah, it's prospectwealthadvisors.com, 800-670 5782. Again, all that's in the show description as well, so you can find it there. But hopefully these first 2 episodes kind of paint the picture for who Chris and Dylan are. Prospect Wealth Advisors, a little insight into the practice itself, also the planning process. Again, please subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more coming. We'll dive a lot more into detail on all these. Again, very educational plan moving forward. But we appreciate you checking out these first couple episodes. And guys, thanks for kind of laying the foundation. Looking forward to our next shows.
Thank you, Ben.
The information presented in this show is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as a recommendation or advice specific to your situation. Prospect Wealth Advisors help clients prepare for retirement using various insurance and investment products and strategies. Investment advisory services are offered through Creative One Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. Creative One Wealth LLC and Prospect Wealth Advisors are unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Tax and legal services are offered through our network of qualified tax and legal professionals. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No investment strategy can ensure profit or guarantee against losses. Insurance product guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company.